Thank you so much for having me here. Let me start with the story. When I was a child, I loved doing mental maths. In class 5, I actually solved my entire maths exam without using pen. I solved all of the questions in my brain and just wrote the final answer on the sheet. Any guesses how much I scored? Exactly. I scored a 0. I went home, I asked my father, and I actually took him to school. And my father, to his credit, he fought for me. And he went to my teacher and he said, see, the guy has written all the answers correctly. They had an argument. Eventually, the teacher gave me grace marks, and I passed that exam. On my way back, I asked my father, I wrote everything correctly, then why didn't I score full marks? And he said, people don't evaluate you on your answers. People evaluate you on how you think. And this thinking part is what is changing now and which worries me. I see 3 examples of this in my everyday life as a manager. Number 1, no one takes notes anymore. I've been after my team to take notes, but everyone just prefers doing a voice recording, putting it on ChatGPT, and getting a next steps out of it, right? And this literally was my first job. For 3 months, I attended meetings, I just took notes, summarized them, figured out what is relevant, what is not relevant, and 500 meetings later, I had somehow built the ability of figuring out the wheat from the chaff. Number 2, no one creates structures to problems anymore. As on a branding project, I had done tons of analysis, had lots of data. I remember standing in front of the whiteboard for hours to figure out what is the best way to represent it so that the clients understand what I'm trying to say. Nowadays, when I ask my teams, I get a ChatGPT response again in 5 minutes. It is a good framework, no doubt about it. But that one framework that I created years ago, I have used that still in so many meetings, even after all that time. And I'm just truly proud of the output that I had created with my own mind. Number 3, no one writes their own emails. Again, people just dump voice notes, people dump ramblings, and a well-finished email comes out of it. Some people might say well-finished, but seriously, is it a well-finished email if it has so many M dashes in the email body itself? On one of my projects, as an associate, my job was to send an email to the COO of the company every day to tell the update, whatever had happened that day. And the beginning of the project, I got the feedback that I need to amp up my communication. 6 months later, doing 30 minutes of writing and rewriting an email every day, I got a raving feedback on my communication. So if you think about it, there's so much of productivity improvement, right? I spent hours looking at the whiteboard and trying to figure out a framework. I spent months actually attending meetings to build my business judgment. And again, I spent hours to write that perfect email. All of that can now be done in a few minutes. But the real question is not productivity improvement. The real question is, can you actually do better work without first being really bad at it? Building judgment, structuring ambiguous problems, and communicating effectively are the essence of a healthy mind. If you don't practice them now, if you don't practice them early in your career, then those muscles never get developed. The only solution is to either let your brain become obese or force it to work out those muscles. So what can you do? My belief, 2 things. Number 1, figure out what to outsource. There's a beautiful story about Dell and Asus on outsourcing. The story goes like this. Dell wanted to improve their financials, so it started outsourcing manufacturing of motherboards and assembly of PCs to Asus. Over time, Asus got better, Dell started outsourcing more. Dell started seeing more improvement in their profitability metrics. Asus kept on getting better. At a certain point, guess what happened? Dell had pretty much outsourced everything that they created. They were only left with their brand. And Asus launched their own laptop as a competitor to Dell. And when I first heard the story, I think it hit me hard. Because we glorify outsourcing so much. We glorify chasing profits so much. But really at what cost? We really need to take a step back to figure out what is it that we want to outsource. And especially in this AI age, in the day-to-day, outsource menial work, outsource doing research, outsource creating data logs, outsource even applying a basic Excel formula to it. But do not outsource your critical thinking. Number 2, get your brain a workout. Let me tell you a personal story. I think some of you who are from early 90s, 80s might just relate to it. At that age, somehow during that period, all middle-class parents in India, they love telling stories of their struggles that they had in their childhood. And I grew up listening to them. My parents told me how they swam across rivers to reach their school, how they walked miles to reach their school. I think maybe it's a bit exaggerated. I can't say for sure. But I never had to face those struggles. I had a school bus picking me up every day. When I got my first job, I was privileged enough to actually take a cab to commute to office and not go through public transport. So efficient, right? Again, saved so many hours, so much time for my mind to actually work better. But all of that eventually led to me becoming unhealthy, unfit, and obese. And all the walking that I had skipped to go to school, to go to office, I had to forcefully bake that into my routine. I had to force myself to go for a walk in the mornings and in the evenings. And if you think about it, something which was just so natural for a generation that they had to walk has become a forced reality for us. All of us are now using gadgets to track 10,000 steps. Like, seriously, do we need that? Isn't it basic that all of us should walk that much? I think if we just draw a parallel to AI now, we need to again make sure that we don't become mentally obese. We need to solve puzzles. At least one thing a day, try to do without using AI. Don't skip leg day at gym, and don't skip using your gray cells at work. My parting thought, I firmly believe AI will not replace us. But I do fear that AI will replace these skills within us. The skill of critical thinking, of structuring problems, of communicating. And we are already seeing this. I'm sure you have seen this on social media. All content looks the same. All emails that I get look the same. All presentations that I make look the same. I think it will take a lot of conscious effort from our part to stay ahead of the curve. And my just last thought would be, let AI extend your mind, not replace it. Thank you.